Everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting pre-algebra class. Today we are going to be in lesson 7.4. 7.4 talks about slope-intercept form. You may also hear me call this y-intercept form. It's really the same thing. It's just me using a different terminology for it. So we are on page number 309 in your book, page 309. And the first thing that it really talks about, you can look down here on the screen, I've got it written down, are basically what is an intercept. So when you hear slope intercept or y-intercept, what is this talking about? Okay, what does the word intercept mean? Well, you might be able to kind of figure out what it means. It kind of sounds like intercept, intersect, and it's really close to that idea of what, like an intersection where two things cross each other. So an intercept means where the line touches the x or the y axis. Okay, so in other words, when you draw your little graph and your line, the line from the equation, crosses the x line, that's an intercept. Where it crosses the y line, that's an intercept. So it's not really that complicated. It's just where they cross the line. I think we've kind of already talked about this just a little bit. So maybe this is just a little bit of review for you, and that would be great because we need to know this in order to solve these. So we have to have a good concept of what the intercept actually means. All right, look down here. I said each line will have an x-intercept and a y-intercept. So all the lines that you do will have one of each. There will be a point where it crosses the x, and there will be a point that it crosses the y. There are two exceptions to that. Zero slope is an exception to that because that has no slope, right? So that one never crosses the x line. And then undefined slope is a vertical line, so that one never crosses the y line. Okay, so except for those two, zero slope and undefined slope, every other line always crosses the x and the y. So that's important to understand as well. All right, a few different things that we need to know about this. Let's go ahead, let me blow this up, and let me switch it over to graph paper so that you can see it a little bit better. All right, so let's talk about this line on the graph. What is going on? This line is crossing the x line, and this line is crossing the y line. So let's first of all focus on its, what we would call the x-intercept. I'm just going to write it x-int, okay? Where does it cross the x line? Well, it crosses the x line right here at this point. What point is that? Let's write it down. So let's start on the x. We're going 1, 2, 3 on the x. So our x is going to be 3. And we don't rise or run because this is right here on the x line, right? So there's no rise, there's no run. So the y point is going to be 0. Notice whenever you have an x-intercept, the y is always going to be 0. That's really important because that actually helps us figure out the x and the y-intercept when we don't know it. So later in algebra, you're going to need that concept. You're going to have to understand that concept so that you can find the x-intercept or that you can find the y-intercept. Okay, so now let's look for the y-intercept. Where does it cross the line? So let's look for the y-int. Okay, well, it's right here where it crosses the y line. So now we're going to count on the x first. Well, notice it doesn't move off of the x. So x is going to be 0. X is always 0 in y-intercept. It has to be. Okay, and then in x-intercept, y is always 0, remember. So that's kind of the trick there. And then we're going to count up 1, 2, 3 spots. So this is going to be the y-intercept will be 3. All right. So the x-intercept is 3 and the y-intercept is 3. So this one was 3 on both. So 1, 2, 3 on the x. There's your point. 1, 2, 3 on the y. There is your point there. Okay. So that's our x-intercept and our y-intercept. Let's look down here at the next thing that I have written down. And again, I'm kind of following along in your book. So You can do the same. I'm on page 309 at the bottom of the page now. Slope-intercept form. Okay, this is what the lesson is about. The lesson was not about the slopes, but you had to understand the slope, and you have to understand the intercepts in order to understand what is slope-intercept form, right? So we understand slope. We learned that in the first few lessons of this chapter. Now, hopefully, you're understanding more about the intercepts, where they cross the x and the y line. So now we're going to put those two ideas together, and we're going to have a form of the equation, or we're going to have a way to write the equation so that it will show us the slope and the intercept. Look what it says there. A form of an equation which shows the line's slope and y-intercept. All right. When we write it like this, we're going to write our formula kind of like this. Y equals mx plus b. Y. So this is kind of just like your y point, and this is just kind of like your x point, right? So we know what the x and the y are. But what is the m and what is the b? Well, from the last lesson, or a couple lessons ago, you should remember that slope is m, all right? So when you see this m right here, that's where you're going to find your slope. So whatever's in front of this x right here, the number that is in front of the x is going to be your slope. Then this one, this is new, this plus b. Notice that the plus b down here, it says that it is the y-intercept. It's the y-intercept. So whatever that b number is, let's say that is plus 2. Well, that way you know the intercept where it crosses the y line is going to be at 2. All right, so y equals mx plus b. Super, super, super important. You need to memorize that. Memorize that is slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. All right, let's look at this. So here's my equation. Y equals mx plus b, right? So let me write that. Y equals mx plus b. Notice this is in that form. So this right here is our slope, m and 3. So what does our slope equal? Our slope equals 3. Notice this right here. That's our b. What is our b? Our b is the y-intercept. I'm going to write y-intercept equals 1, okay, because b equals 1 in this case. So this is pretty cool. From this format right here, y equals mx plus b, I can write the slope and I can write the y-intercept. So watch what else I can do. I can come over here to my graph, and I'm going to start with my y-intercept, and I'm going to graph that at 1. So it just comes up 1. So my line is going to cross my y line at 1. That's what this tells me right here. That's my y-intercept. Then my slope is 3. Now, don't be confused by the number 3, because a lot of students will get confused by that. Remember that it's technically 3 over 1, right? Because slope is always a fraction. It's always rise over run. So we're going to come up here, and we're going to rise 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to run 1. So we're going to be right here. Our next point is going to be right there. And look, now we have 2 points. How many points do you need to draw a line? You only need 2 points to draw a line. So there you go. There's our line. Okay, that's not a great line. Let me try just a little bit better. It's really hard to draw a straight line there. That's, whatever. All right, so there's our line going through those 2. Now, you would use a straight edge and draw your line a little bit better, and I could do better if I tried, but we'll just leave it like that for now. So once you draw your y-intercept and once you draw your slope on the graph, then your line just connects those 2 points that you draw. So this is a very easy way to graph a line. Put it in slope-intercept form, and then you can graph your line. Let me show you one other thing, and I'll be done. This is going to be a short lesson, right? You're like, whatever. Come on, Mr. Steve, you're already over 10 minutes. I know, okay. But we'll try to keep this one pretty short. So here's what we're going to do. It's short, but you need to know it. Like, watch this one 5 times if you have to, because this is important. Like, this is one of the most key concepts in Algebra 1. So you need to really know this stuff. So really work hard. So now what we're going to do is, okay, this line is graphed, right? They already graphed that line. What you need to do now is you need to write the formula. You need to write it in slope-intercept form. So we need to write y equals mx plus b. We want to plug into that. So what is our m and what is our b? That's important because that's going to plug into this formula, and that's going to give us our equation. So let's talk about what is our m. Well, what is m? M is our what? Is our slope. We don't know what our slope is yet. We can figure it out, but this is the one to start with, the b. Our b is our y-intercept. So where does this one cross the y line? Well, it crosses it right down here, right? So what point is that? 1, 2, 3. Don't forget we're going down. So that's going to be -3 is our y-intercept. And now we can take that and plug that right in here. So we're going to have, I'll change the color here, y equals, we don't know what our mx is. Well, we could just put our x there. We don't know what our m is. And then we have plus 3. You're like, mx plus. No, it's okay if it's minus. So mx minus 3. We know that it's minus because we went down on our graph. So that has to be a minus. So that's not always going to be a positive. If it's going up on the graph, it will be positive. If it's going down on the graph, it will be negative. Your slope can also be negative, right? Okay, we talked about different types of slope. So slope here could be negative as well. Maybe it will be in this one, okay? In fact, I think it will be. So let's figure out what our slope is now. So now we're here, and we want to figure out what is our slope. Well, how do we do this? There's a couple ways that we can do this. Here's probably the easiest way. What you want to do is you want to find another spot on this line where it hits a corner. All right, notice right here, it doesn't hit a corner, does it? It's like halfway through that line. So we want to find another spot on here that it hits a corner. So there's one right there. This one will work right here. So what we want to do now is we want to count it. Look, we're going up 1. All right, so 1 is our, remember our slope is y over x. So if we're going up 1, we're going 1 on the y, and how many over? 1, 2, but remember this is negative, so it's going to be -2. So our slope is -1/2. So we just put -1/2. There you go. So there is our equation of our line that we just graphed. Y equals -1/2 x. So this is the slope. We got that from right here. And then this is the y-intercept. We got that from right here. Where did we get those? Well, we got this from where it crosses the line. We got the slope from counting over to another point that crosses one of these. So I'm going to blow this up just a little bit. Notice we could also go this way. Look, that one touches a corner as well. Now we're going 1, 2, right, on the x, +2 on the x, so 2 is our denominator, and we're going down 1, so -1. Notice we still have a -1/2 slope. Our slope is -1/2. It doesn't matter which way you go. One of them is going to be negative and one of them is going to be positive, which means we have a negative slope. Okay? Well, that's all I have for you in this lesson. Hopefully you learned something. Go ahead and practice these, right? Go to your book, practice these, do these. That's the only way that you're going to get good at them. Make sure you remember what intercept is. It's where it crosses the line. Make sure you remember how to count your slope. Make sure that you're paying attention to the negative with the slope, because that'll throw your answer off if you just put positive. So make sure that you're remembering when I go down on the y, that's negative. When I go left on the y, on the x, that is negative. So make sure you keep those negative signs attached. Okay? That's all I got for you. Have a good one. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.